Okay, here we are. Pesach is coming. We're getting excited, and we're going to do a review of the halachas that are unique for this year in particular. Erev Pesach Shecholias Shabbos. That is when Erev Pesach is on Shabbos, which doesn't happen that often, even though it was 4 years ago. But the next time is 20 years ago. And just now, I was looking. I have a book here, the Take of Real, who's a Rav in Borough Park, have a set, and this particular volume is Hilchos Erev Pesach Shechol B'Shabbos. This book is this is an older printing. Now they put it together with, I think, Purim or Purim Meshulish or something. This is just the halachas of Erev Pesach on Shabbos, and I see on the inside, I wrote my name and the year and the city where I first used it, which was 2001, Novokuznetsk, Russia. I went there when I was a bacher for Pesach, and it was Erev Pesach was Shabbos. So that year. Anyway, so we're going to go through some of the halachas. I did make a sheet of a kitzur of some of the halachas. It's not totally finished. I want to touch it up a little bit, but I'll share it with anybody who wants. We'll have printed copies here at Chabad, God willing, Shabbos, that anyone can take home with them. I'll put it online if anybody wants to just download it and print it themselves. And my goal was to just really zero in and try to dial in what are the practical halachas for this year, things that are practical to know, that are actually helpful, hopefully. There's lots of debate and discussions about the right way to do things this year. So I tried whenever possible to just kind of zero in and make a suggestion about how to do things. But in some cases, we're just going to leave it different ways to do it. So for starters, I just want to say, and we're not really going to talk about the Seder, really, maybe another time. We're really going to talk about everything leading up to, it's not everything, many of the things leading up to the Seder. So today was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So we're already in that time period. The Haggadah says, Yochol mi Rosh Chodesh. You might think that already from Rosh Chodesh, you should begin the Seder, you should have the Seder, which even though that's not the halacha, that's not what we actually do. However, the very fact that the Torah suggests it as a possibility, I might think that already beginning Rosh Chodesh is when I should be celebrating Pesach and making the Seder. So that's a hava mina in Torah. That's a possible idea in Torah, and that itself has a message and has a lesson. And from Rosh Chodesh, we go into Beis Nisan, the second of Nisan, which is the Yortzeit of the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. So it's an auspicious time. Of course, the Rebbe's birthday, Yud Aleph Nisan, the 11th of Nisan, also, and various other things as well. First and foremost, Mo'os Chitim. Literally, I think we discussed this the other day, I think, literally translated as wheat money or money for wheat. Mo'os Chitim means, basically in plain English, give money to help the poor. That's what it means. Tzedakah, it was traditionally specifically for matzah, but nowadays it's really matzah, meat, wine, maybe tuition also, eggs this year. It's really for all Pesach-related expenses. And the whole idea is to give a little bit extra tzedakah this year, every year before Pesach. It's always good to give that extra tzedakah, but especially now when people have more expenses. So we want to help the needy to be able to also celebrate Pesach properly. In fact, there's a letter from the Rebbe in which he writes that giving this tzedakah, mo'os chitim, the money to help others purchase their Pesach necessities, is actually the real introduction to the Seder. The Seder really begins when you give tzedakah to help others celebrate. Where do we see that? We say in the Haggadah itself, Kol dichvin yesei v'yechol. All who are hungry, come and eat. When do you do that exactly? When we say that phrase, all who are hungry, come and eat, I'm already at the Seder. I'm already with my family. I'm already with my guests. Who am I inviting at that point? So the real invitation, the real opening and introduction of the Seder, all who are hungry, let them come and eat, is before Pesach, is when we give tzedakah, we give mo'os chitim. Number two, selling chametz. Basically do the same thing you do every year. Go to your Rav, go to whoever you sell your chametz with. Do not leave it till the last minute for obvious reasons, especially if you have complicated questions or a situation or you're traveling or wherever it may be. Don't leave it to the last minute. That's important to note. Next, and you'll feel free, you can interject if you have questions. if I can address them, I will, God willing. Fast of the firstborn. I happen to be a firstborn, and that is on Erev Pesach, which is on Shabbos. We don't fast on Shabbos. So, although I saw something just interesting now in the Shulchan Aruch about fasting on Shabbos, maybe we'll get to that. I mentioned it's going to be only really try to be practical halachas only, but I try to at least every once in a while give a little bit of flavor to make it more intriguing as well. But fast for the firstborn, supposed to be on Shabbos. We don't fast on Shabbos, so we would pull it the day before, Friday. However, we don't fast on Erev Shabbos either, with the exception of the 10th of Teves, Asar B'Teves, when that falls on a Friday, as it did this year. We do fast as we did this year. But we only do that Asar B'Teves. So the fast of the firstborn is Shabbos. We push it back to Friday, but we push that back to Thursday. So if you are a firstborn, number one, firstborn male, or option number two, you're not a firstborn, however, you have a son who is not yet bar mitzvah and is firstborn. Either way, you have to fast for either yourself or for your son. There's actually an opinion brought down that if the father is a firstborn, and he has a son who's not bar mitzvah, that's firstborn. So you can't fast for two people at the same time. So it's actually brought down the mother should fast. We don't do that, but it is brought down such a thing. Now, it's a real fast, which means you're not allowed to have a cup of coffee before davening. It's a real fast, so if you're a firstborn, you can't drink before davening. There's nothing until you hear a siyum, which is the prevailing custom, is not to fast for the day, but to listen to and to participate in a siyum, a conclusion of a Masechta Gemara typically, and then don't just listen to it, but have some of the food that they put out afterwards. Probably it's going to be kosher the Pesach food, most likely wherever you go for that. And actually, God willing, there will be, Mirz Hashem, hopefully to confirm, but a minyan here with a siyum, God willing, on Thursday, which would be the 12th of Nisan. Not this Thursday, but the following Thursday. And after that, you hear the siyum, you have a bite to eat, you do not need to fast. And that is the way to do it. But again, to emphasize it, it really is a real fast. So much so that if for whatever reason a person did not hear a siyum and did not exempt themselves from fasting, from participating in the siyum, there's a whole discussion. What if the whole day goes, you didn't eat? Now that night, Thursday night, as we're going to get to shortly, you have to check for chametz. But what if you're so exhausted from fasting the whole day and you know checking for chametz could be an arduous process and you say, I just need something to eat. So there's a whole discussion in Shulchan Aruch. Are you allowed to eat? It's a fast day, and you're supposed to check for chametz first. You're not supposed to eat before you check for chametz. So anyway, just to point out that it is a real fast day. But again, the prevailing custom to listen to a siyum. Okay. And firstborn women do not need to fast. Next thing, bedikas chametz, checking for chametz. That is done the night going into Erev Pesach. But in this year, that's Friday night. We don't check for chametz on Friday night. Why? Because the chachamim were very particular. Or haner yofer lebedika. You're supposed to use a candle. You're supposed to use a candle. Chachamim said a candle is the best thing to check with. Although we'll get to soon when you should not use a candle. So you can't do that Friday night. That would be completely awesome to use a candle Friday night. So therefore, we check the night before, which in plain English, Thursday night. We're going to do the bedikas chametz. Same way we normally would do it. You put out the 10 pieces through your house. It's recommended to, first of all, wrap them up in a napkin or something that shouldn't crumble. Number two, some people recommend, it's probably a good idea, to write down where you put them so you don't forget and you don't end up with complicated questions. Oh no, I put out 10 pieces. I only can find 9. So you can write them down, or maybe in today's day and age, just snap a picture. Then you have GPS location of your chametz pieces. So we check for chametz Thursday night. That's Thursday, April 10th. We do it after 7:58 p.m. That time is Queens specific. All the times I'll mention are Queens specific, as I have listed on the sheet too, that, as I said, I will share later. And you can go to chabad.org/zmanim. You can look up if you're going to be somewhere else. 10 pieces of bread placed throughout the house as usual. That's from the Arizal. You also have to check your car. Don't check your car with a candle. Usually we don't bring flames close to cars. So don't check your car with a candle. Use a flashlight. Some actually say that really that could even be checked during the day. But you can do it while you're checking for chametz and you're basically done with your house. So go outside with a flashlight and you clean your... Of course, this is all clean beforehand. Bedikas chametz is not cleaning for chametz. We're assuming you did that already. You also have to check other places where you are. If you have an office, check your office. You don't have to check your office necessarily Thursday night, especially maybe you can't get into your office Thursday night. It's in a building or something. That's fine. You could check it earlier in the week without a bracha. And Thursday night we do b'dikas chametz with a bracha. But if you check any other location, an office or I don't know, a gym locker or whatever other locations you may have, let's say you have a storage garage somewhere, you have to check all those places. But you could do that earlier in the week if you want. That's convenient. But again, that's without a bracha.
That's only if you brought chametz into this place.
Yeah, only if you brought chametz there, or
it's likely you brought chametz.
It's likely or it's possible, exactly. Now, this is all provided that you leave at least somewhere in your house to check on Thursday night, at least one room to check, and that you're going to do with a bracha Thursday night. And the practical custom is also we daven Ma'ariv before checking for chametz. So we daven Ma'ariv at the first opportunity, which again is 7:58 p.m. And then we check for chametz after that. And then after we finish b'dikas chametz on Thursday night, checking for chametz, we recite the Kol Chamira, that is also known as the Bittul, printed in your Siddur or your Haggadah. All the chametz that I have, etc., is nullified. The language there leaves aside. We're still going to have more chametz left over that we're going to be eating now Friday and Shabbos morning as well, which we'll get to. So basically, Thursday night b'dikas chametz is the same as a regular year, basically. Important to note also that the Kol Chamira, this bittul where we nullify any chametz that we may have overlooked, the language that we say that in is Aramaic. Why do we say it in Aramaic? So it's brought down. The reason is very simple. That was the lingua franca. That was the language people spoke. So they did it in Aramaic, so people should know what they're saying. Because the whole concept of the Kol Chamira is that a person is making a verbal declaration. Anything that I may have overlooked or not found, etc., it doesn't belong to me, it's nothing, it's ownerless, etc. So the whole concept of the Kol Chamira hinges on my understanding. That's why they said to say it in Aramaic. But nowadays, if you don't understand the Aramaic, you have two options. Option number one, learn Aramaic and learn what the words mean. Wouldn't hurt. Option number two, don't say it in Aramaic. Say it in a language that you understand. Because again, the whole purpose of saying it is contingent on the fact that you understand what you're actually saying. It's like Shema Yisrael. You say Shema Yisrael, you don't know what it means. Because the whole thing is about what it means. Okay. If you're leaving your apartment or your home before Thursday night, you're leaving Thursday morning, or Wednesday before, or Tuesday before, whatever it may be, you're taking a flight somewhere, and you will not be home when it comes time to check for chametz, that means Thursday night, after 7:58 p.m., then you have to do b'dikas chametz in your house before you leave without a bracha. Why? Because you're leaving within 30 days of Pesach. And the halacha is, if you leave within 30 days, you have to do b'dikas chametz. Now, one way to not do that is if you're not coming back to your house at all. You're leaving, you're going to another country, another city, another state, whatever it may be, and you're not coming back, then
until after Pesach.
Thank you. Until after Pesach. Then in your chametz sale form, you can indicate, I'm selling my entire home. I will not be coming back for all Pesach at all. But that means you can't come back. Like, you can't sneak back in. I just need a few things. Maybe an emergency you could, but not maybe, but but you can't really come back. Yeah. So you should do b'dikas chametz before you leave in such a case. Now, let's say you arrive somewhere on Thursday, whether it's a hotel or your parents' house or friends' homes or wherever it may be. Thursday night, you're supposed to check for chametz Thursday night. So there are different opinions in the poskim about what to do. Some say, let's say, for example, that you're spending Pesach with your parents, let's say. So some say you should rent your room from your father for $1. Give him $1. Say, I'm renting the room. Then the room is mine, and now I, who's staying here Thursday night, have an obligation to check for chametz. And since I rented it, I could say a bracha and do b'dikas chametz in that room. That's what some say. However, some don't like this idea of renting it for $1 or $2 even, because you could have stayed there anyway. It's not like your parents would let you stay even if you don't pay them $1. Whereas a hotel won't let you stay unless you pay. So in a hotel, for sure you could say a bracha. Not only could you say a bracha, you have to say a bracha for B'dikas Chametz Thursday night. But in your parents' home, some say renting it for $1 doesn't really work. And then instead of that, it would be better to listen to the bracha of whoever owns the house, whoever's making B'dikas Chametz, and then assist him in that process. Okay, there's different opinions about how to do it. Those are the two things that I'm aware of. Now, if you're leaving, you're not going to be home for the Siddur, but you're coming back in the middle of Pesach, there's no question, you have to check for chametz, for sure. If it's before the Zman, Thursday night, you have to do it without a bracha. But you must check before Pesach. Now, for those who go to a hotel and will be in a hotel during Pesach, this question typically comes up. I've heard this question many, many times. Can I do B'dikas Chametz in my suitcase on Thursday night? I'm traveling or I'm in the hotel, etc. The answer is no, absolutely not. You may not. I mean, you have to check your suitcase, by the way, to make sure you didn't forget any cookies in there or something. But you may not recite a bracha for checking in a suitcase, for sure not. Okay. Also, one other point I want to add as well is that if and when you are doing B'dikas Chametz earlier than Thursday night, it's typically not recommended to put out the 10 pieces of chametz, because then you'd have to find them and then bring them with you to wherever you're going to burn them. So it's not typically recommended. Okay, but if you have specific questions about B'dikas Chametz, we could discuss. But the standard thing, Thursday night. And it's pretty much like a regular year. Friday morning. Now, Erev Pesach in the morning, we do not say Mizmor L'Soida after Baruch Shamar. However, this year, Erev Pesach is Shabbos, so we anyway don't say Mizmor L'Soida. So Friday, we do. No reason not to. We do say Mizmor L'Soida in the davening. As usual, Ashkenazim do not say Mizmor L'Soida during Pesach at all, during Chol HaMoed Pesach. Sfardim, to my knowledge, typically do recite it during Chol HaMoed. Next, burning the chametz. They're supposed to burn the chametz Erev Pesach. When's that? Shabbos. Can't burn chametz Shabbos. So when do we do it? Friday morning. Technically, you have the whole day to burn the chametz because it's not actually Erev Pesach. However, in order not to differentiate from one year to the other, and in order that a person shouldn't say, but last year we burned the chametz at 5 p.m., it wasn't a problem. Whereas if it's actually Erev Pesach, that's mamish osir. Not allowed to do that. There's a Zman earlier, which in Queens is 11:50 a.m. So even though technically we don't have to burn our chametz on Friday before 11:50 a.m., but in order, keeping in mind what may happen in other years, that people shouldn't come to burn their chametz after the proper time in a so-called regular year. Therefore, Friday also, we burn our chametz at that same time that we would as if it was actually Erev Pesach, also known as 11:50 a.m. Now, it goes without saying, I think, you could eat chametz the whole day. It's Friday. It's not Erev Pesach. You could eat chametz. You probably don't want to be going crazy with chametz because you already cleaned for Pesach, but you can eat chametz all day long on Friday. Important. Very important. In the Siddur of the Haggadah, when it has the section about burning chametz, right after you burn the chametz, is another kol chamira, a second recitation of nullifying the chametz. We do not say it at this time when we burn the chametz. That's the major difference. We do not say it when we burn the chametz this year, because we're still leaving over chametz that we're going to be eating Friday night and Shabbos morning early, which we'll get to soon. So we do not say it. I wrote in the bold, I put in my little page here, not in bold. We do not say it. Rather, and this is equally as critical, Shabbos morning, we do say it, and it's important not to forget. You can't set really a reminder on your phone to ding, so you have to have some other kind of reminder. Don't forget, or let's say in the positive, remember to say the second kol chamir that we normally say when we burn the chametz. We're going to say it Shabbos morning before 11:50 a.m. After we finish eating. Actually, I have here, it's 11:49. So either I have to double check the time, or it could be because the next day already changes by 1 minute. But so eat it before 11, do it before 11:48, and don't leave it to the last minute.
That works on Shabbat, that kol chamira?
Yeah.
Legally.
Yeah. We'll talk about that so much. What you should do if you have extra chametz.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's move now to preparing for Shabbos. You have all day Friday, and your house is clean for Pesach. You burned your chametz already before 11:50 a.m. And you can have snacks. You can do whatever you want. Regular, you have to do Shnai Mikra Targum on Friday. You have to do whatever else it is you can do for regular Shabbos preparations, going to mikvah, etc., etc. Now, we also have to keep in mind to prepare everything that we can for the Seder, such as get your Haggadahs out. Make sure your Haggadahs are ready. You don't want them on the table with chametz, but make sure they're on the shelf somewhere, whatever. You have to roast the zroya, roast the shenkbon, check the lettuce for bugs, make the charoset. Set your, if you have a Shabbos, a timer for the lights. If you're going to be using air conditioning or heating, depending where you live, set all those timers on Friday. Light a yortzeit candle before Shabbos, even if you don't have a yortzeit, but you want to have the candle. You don't have to call it a yortzeit candle, I guess, in order to be able to light your candles for Yom Tov on Motzei Shabbos. You need to do that from an existing flame. So this has to all be done before Shabbos. You can make a checklist and go through on Shabbos and make sure you do all these preparations. Prepare your matzah. What do you have to do with your matzah to prepare it? Some people go through the matzah, see if there's any, you make sure they have enough whole matzahs, make sure that there's no ones that are kfulos or folded over, you don't want to use those necessarily, etc. I actually prepare before Pesach. You don't have to do this, but I just do it. I find it helps things go smoother. There's a whole debate. The amount of matzah you have to eat is a kazayis. Well, how do you measure that? By volume or by weight? So there's different opinions. What I learned is we go by weight. That's how I learned. So I actually weigh matzah before the Seder and put it in bags. This way, when it comes time to eat the matzah, that you need matzah for the mor, whatever you need matzah for, I just hand someone a bag and say, here you go. This is exactly what you need to eat, and you don't need to eat more. And I often find that it's less than people think that it is. So I find actually it eases people's anxiety. Oh, if I eat this, you mean I did the mitzvah? Yes. So that if I want to do that, you can't weigh, you can't measure things on Shabbos. You have to do that at Erev Shabbos. Prepare your bags, etc. The matzah, prepare the salt water, etc. If you're using a horseradish root for moror, in addition typically to romaine lettuce, which it says Shulchan Aruch is ideal to use romaine lettuce, because even though romaine is not bitter, but lettuce, when it stays in the ground, lettuce is sweet, especially younger lettuce is sweet. But if you leave it in the ground and it stays in the ground longer, the lettuce gets harder and a little bit bitter, which is exactly like the servitude in Egypt. It started out, it was kind of sweet. Paro said, hey, I'll do the work with you guys. But it got progressively worse and harder and more bitter. And that's why Chazal said actually that romaine lettuce. But some people also have horseradish root that gives it the kick. Horseradish root as well. If you're going to do that, you need to grate it before Shabbos. To grate it before Shabbos, it's recommended if you're doing that to right away seal it in a Tupperware container or something, so it shouldn't lose the heat from the moror. Now, if you forgot to, all these things are questions, what if you forgot to do them? So, for example, if you forgot to grate your moror before Shabbos, you can't grate it on Shabbos, but you can grate it on Yom Tov, which means only Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night. You can grate it in an unusual manner. I gave two examples, such as grating it directly onto the table. That's unusual. You don't usually grate you don't grate something straight onto a table. You grate it usually into a utensil. Okay, so a shino, a change, would be grated directly on the table. Or you could turn the grater upside down. That's maybe a little harder. Go like this instead of like this, I guess. It's a little harder to do, but either one of those would be okay to do on Yom Tov. Likewise, this one is more complicated a little bit. Not more complicated, but let's say you forgot to roast the zroa, the shank bone. You're supposed to roast it, right? But you didn't roast it. You cannot roast it on Shabbos, obviously, because that's cooking. You can't do that. You also may not roast it on Yom Tov either. Why? Because the heter to use fire for purpose of cooking on Yom Tov is only to eat it. Right, there's oichel nefesh just to eat it. But the minute we don't eat the zroya.
You eat the next day, no? You eat it for lunch. Not the Seder, but you eat the next day.
I'm not sure we eat it. I don't know. So in such a case, you could just use a regular piece of meat, regular piece of cooked meat. Take a piece of the brisket and use that. You should not roast the zroya on Yom Tov because we're not eating it. What if you forgot to hard boil your egg? Well, to put an egg, even there's a whole discussion. Is why do you need the egg this year? Because there's no korban chagiga this year. The egg represents the korban chagiga. What do you need it for? There's no korban chagiga when Erev Pesach was on Shabbos. Okay, so different opinions. Of Lamaisa, we put a hard-boiled egg also. But what if you forgot to roll hard-boil your eggs? Can you do that on Shabbos? Obviously not. Can you do it on Yom Tov? Answer, yes. Because the hard-boiled egg you could eat. So cooking the hard-boiled egg is permissible on Yom Tov only because you could eat it. If you forgot to prepare salt water before Shabbos, you should not prepare it on Shabbos. Rather, you should prepare it on Yom Tov. Again, that means Motzei Shabbos after the time, after the Zman, which I think was 8:15 or something, or 8:14. Where did I write it? I don't know. It's here somewhere. How do you make the salt water? Again, do it in an unusual manner, such as first put the water and then the salt. I'm not sure how do you make salt water. Put the salt in first, then the water then salt. I don't know. And you should only make a small amount of salt water. I mean, I don't think you're going crazy with salt water anyway, but if you have to make it on Yom Tov, make a small amount. Now, also, we're all talking, this is before we even get to Shabbos. These are the preparations for Shabbos. You should cut your fingernails and your hair before Pesach. Get a haircut before Pesach. Now, normally on Erev Pesach, you cannot do that after Chatzos, because it's already considered a little bit of a Yom Tov already. You're not supposed to do certain malachas, or really any malacha, on Erev Pesach. However, this year, Friday is not Erev Pesach. So you actually could get a haircut all day on Friday, and you could cut your fingernails all day Friday. And that's important to do before Yom Tov. One last point before we move into Shabbos itself is to remember to check your vacuum cleaner. If it has a bag in it, you should remove the bag before Pesach and dispose of it in the garbage. If it's one of those bagless versions, I guess just dump it out, clean it out, make sure there's no because these have actual chametz in them. It's something that could be very easy to forget and to overlook, but it's actually very important to either dispose of the garbage of the bag from the vacuum cleaner, or clean it out.
If you're going to use it, basically. Otherwise, you could
put
it stuff to sell.
Correct. Otherwise, if we're not going to use it, that's correct. You could put it in sellable. That's correct.
You're not selling that stuff. It's nullified. It's dust. I mean, it's like crumbs. It's not a kazayit.
Well, it might be a kazayis, first of all. It might be altogether. And second of all, it's a little bit problematic if it's be'ain, if you could see it. It could be potentially problematic. So the best thing is to get rid of it. If a person didn't get rid of it, we could say, okay, it's included in the kol chamira. But really, it's better to plan in advance and either dispose of it, or like it was suggested, if you don't plan on using the stuff that you're not you can put it away and sell it. No problem. 100%, no problem. Okay, here comes Shabbos. Your food at this point, kosher Pesach food. That's obvious. You should have separate, meaning keep it separate from your Pesach food, chalas, or pita. Pita bread maybe is a little less crumbly, so that's maybe better to use pita. And you should get only what you need. What do you need? The minimum is you need lechem mishnah Friday night, and you need lechem mishnah Shabbos morning. That's a total of 4, or maybe 3. If you double them up, depends how you do it. And there should be enough for whoever's joining you for Friday night and Shabbos day. There should be enough that every person could eat 2 ounces at each meal. You don't have to measure. You don't have to go crazy. 2 ounces is technically how much you're supposed to eat of the challah. It's not that much. Challahs or pitas relatively dense. Not that much. So chacham einach b'roshai. The best thing is plan ahead. Don't buy big challahs. Buy only what you need. If you're not having guests, which many people probably are not having guests, probably the Shabbos of Erev Pesach, just get the bare minimum. And we're going to get to that why that's the best thing to do. Okay. After Kiddush, this is both Friday night and Shabbos morning. What do you make Kiddush like regular? Figure out which cup you're going to use. You have a Pesach cup already, unless you're maybe using a disposable cup. I'm not sure. Use a Pesach cup. Then you wash your hands as you normally would for challah. you eat your challah or your pita over a napkin. Obviously, be careful not to get crumbs all over the place. After you're done, again, the goal is to have the bare minimum of challah or pita bread necessary. Eat it, wrap up your little tissue with some crumbs on it, take it and flush it down the toilet. That's what you want to do. Then you want to, if you have a nice little situation like this, you want to clean your beard a little bit, maybe over the toilet, brush off your shirt, etc. Rinse your mouth, your hands. Do that in the bathroom, I think, preferably, rather than in your Pesach sink already. And eat the rest of your meal. That's what you did Friday night. And of course, you bench and learn some Torah, go to sleep. Wake up the next morning, Shabbos morning, early. Everybody is davening early this Shabbos. What does early mean? Well, 7, 7:15, 7:30. I guess it depends where you go to shul. But everybody's davening early. Although, just to share an interesting little tidbit I read here, and the Tega Brill brings a story. He says that he heard from the Sadegora Rebbe, or the name of the Sadegora Rebbe, that in such a year like this, on Erev Pesach Shabbos, he didn't change anything. He davened like regularly on Shabbos. He davened at whatever time he normally davened. That's when he davened. And he finished when he regularly finished, which was, from the story, already after the Zman, when you're allowed to eat chametz. What did he do after davening? He had Pesach food. Fish, chicken, potatoes, that's it. That's what he did. He didn't change anything. So it says where the story is brought down here, I was shocked. How could it be such a thing? I thought there's an obligation to eat bread on Shabbos. So how did the Sadegora Rebbe knowingly, seemingly intentionally put himself into such a situation when he's not going to eat bread on? He could have just davened early. If you just daven early, finish, Shabbos is like, let's say 2 hours on Shabbos. Finish, as we're going to do here, right? We're going to daven, God willing, 7:30. We'll finish in Mitzvah Shem around 9:30 a.m. That will leave us till 10:43. So an hour and 15 minutes almost to make Kiddush, eat your pita, your challah, clean up everything, plenty of time. Why didn't he do that? Since I was shocked, I thought there's an obligation to eat bread on Shabbos. However, he brings here that then I saw what it says in Shulchan Aruch on Hilchos Shabbos, Siman Reish Peches. What does it say? Interesting halacha in Reish Peches. Odom hamisana b'chol yoyim, a person who fasts every day. He's an ascetic, fasts every day. V'chilu b'Shabbos tzar hu loy b'pnei shinui avesis. And for such a person, for him, this person who fasts every day, it's painful for him to eat on Shabbos because it's shinui avesis, meaning he's changing from his regular practice. Such a person, says the Shulchan Aruch, yesh oimrim that they have seen numerous pious individuals that fasted on Shabbos for this very reason. And they said, and this is what Rabbi Yehuda Chosid did, fasted on Shabbos. So that, he says, that's the limud, that's what it must be. The Sadegora Rebbe did. For him, I guess, you have to daven regular, you have to keep everything in the regular way. I can't eat bread? No. That being said, for the rest of us, we're going to daven early on Shabbos, and we're going to make sure we have enough time, that we shouldn't have anxiety, and so on and so forth. We should have plenty of time to make Kiddush, and it's going to be the same thing. Kiddush, then we're going to wash as we regular would. For some people want to make a whole thing with egg matzah. I don't know. Egg matzah is not so clear, to me at least. It's not so clear to me that you should use egg matzah. I think the best thing is to use proper challah, in my opinion. Wash. Now, some people might want to make a whole situation where they make Kiddush inside and eat the challah outside and then come back inside. This gets tricky because this halacha has nothing to do with Pesach. Kiddush welcome suda.
You have to see whatever.
So it gets a little complicated because now, if I wrote here that if you want to make Kiddush in your house and eat your challah outside, because you don't want to bring the challah inside already because it's Pesach already, right? If you want to do that, then as long as you can see the outside from where you're making Kiddush, b'di'evid, that's okay. Other option is to just be very careful. Right? Again, you're eating your pita over your tissue, etc. Being careful not to get crumbs anywhere. You wrap it up and fine. Now, what do you do if you have a whole challah left over? Well, I said before, flush it down the toilet. If you're going to flush a challah down the toilet, you're going to have other problems. You're going to need a plumber. You can't call the plumber on Shabbos. What are you going to do? So the best thing, as I mentioned before, chacham einav b'rosheh. A wise person plans in advance. Don't get too much bread or challah. You know what you need. You know how many people you're going to have as guests. You're not going to eat a whole. Just get the bare minimum. That's the best thing. If you want to simply, I have extra challah, extra chametz, too much to flush, I'll put it in my garbage can. Not so simple. Not so simple. Don't recommend that at all. Number one. Some people might say, okay, you know what? I'll just open up the closet that I'm selling with the chametz and I'll push it in there and I'll close up the cat and then we're good. Also not so simple. Not recommended to do that either. Both are complicated situations. Even to give it to a Gentile, also complicated. You can't necessarily invite him to come into your home to give it to him. He'd have to come in on his own. I don't know how you're supposed to do that exactly. And even then, you couldn't actually hand it to him, can't actually give it to them. They have to take it on their own volition. It's complicated. Now, if you live in a place with an Erev, well, then you could even take a tablecloth, a disposable tablecloth that you eat on, the challah. You could wrap up the whole thing, and any extra challah you have, any extra chametz you have, you could wrap up the whole thing. If you have an Erev, because remember, it's Shabbos, you could go outside to a public garbage bin on the street, and you could throw it out there. That you could do. But to throw it in your garbage cans is not okay. That's a problem. Yeah. Okay. Egg matzah. Lots of debate, discussion about egg matzah. The best I can say is that there are different opinions about egg matzah. I heard last week that Rav Avad Yosef Paskin, that Sardim should fry their egg matzah, because they have a separate question if they're even allowed to say hamotzi on it. They should fry it, turning it into hamotzi, and they should use that for sudat shlishit on Shabbos. But I don't think Ashkenazim, to the best of my knowledge, should be doing that. Some people will eat egg matzah throughout the day, others will not. I recommend just using challah or pita. That's what I recommend. And eating matzah, I didn't mention this, but it should be pointed out. Eating actual matzah on Erev Pesach is actually also. It's forbidden to eat matzah. There's a custom. Some people have the custom. Chabad is the custom. We don't eat matzah for a full month before Pesach. That's not a halacha though. That's a minhag. But to not eat matzah on Erev Pesach, aka Shabbos, is mamish also. Not allowed to do it at all. So,
Lou Gray is asking, can you throw the chametz in a sewer on Shabbos?
Can you throw the chametz in a sewer? Yeah, that would be like, I guess, putting it in a city garbage bin. Like putting in a city garbage bin. But again, that's assuming you live somewhere with an Erev. Otherwise, you're getting rid of your chametz, but you're carrying on Shabbos. You can't do that either.
And what about the pipes? I mean, like, even if you flush it down the toilet, I don't know how far it goes, but I don't know, maybe a dumb question, but.
No, it's a good question. It's a good
If
question.
it's your pipes, it's sitting in there then now.
Yeah, why isn't that also, carrying? There's no Erev. Why isn't that considered?
And then also on the
Carrying,
grass,
but that's a whole
if
separate thing.
we do it outside, assuming that we don't want to make the mess on the table or, in the house.
Yeah, that's a good question.
The crumbs are now dropped on the grass. Does that count?
That's a
also?
good question. That's good. So first of
To
all,
land.
if you do that,
Mhm.
it's important to know you're not allowed to sweep up afterwards because you can't sweep a non-paved surface on Shabbos. Number one. Number two, you don't have to check. There's an obligation to do b'dikas chametz in your home. There's no obligation to do b'dikas chametz in your backyard or your front yard. Especially also here, by the way, garbage blows into my yard. What is up with that? It's like I go out every morning. I collect garbage. It's like stray wrappers. It's not even mine.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Without getting into the pet peeves of living in New York, there's no obligation to check your outside because we assume if there are crumbs, this and that, the birds got it, the whatever it was. If when it comes time, for example, that you're burning your chametz on Friday, and you see like chametz on the ground, good. So pick it up and burn it with or dispose of it in some other way. on Shabbos, yeah, if you see if you could actually see chametz on the ground, so you should eat it or pick it up if you want to eat it. You should find some way to dispose of it. Flush that as well down the toilet. But tiny little crumbs you can't necessarily even see or are hardly noticeable. You don't have to examine it, and you can assume a bird is going to come and pick it up. And as far as flushing it, does it go all the way out or this and that? It doesn't really actually matter. As soon as you flush, it's biur. You've destroyed that chametz. Number one. Number two, it's not accessible. You couldn't reach it if you said, "But I know there's a delicious cookie, and I'm pretty sure it's in the pipe, and I want to get it." Like you can't get it anyway, right? Similarly, as we mentioned, let's say for example you have a refrigerator. You have to check behind your refrigerator.
No.
Not really, no.
You don't have to like pull the whole thing out.
No, I mean maybe we go a little bit mishuggah and we do it anyway, right? Okay, fine.
You don't have to.
Even if you know there's Cheerios under the fridge, like behind, even if you know it's there, you still don't have to check. You don't have to actually go get it if it's not accessible. If you can't reach it. So in this case, that would be the same thing. It's in the pipes. As soon as you flush it, it doesn't even matter if it technically leaves the pipes from your home. It's done. It's ruined. Also, I think it's ruined, and you can't access it even if you want to. Does that address? Okay. Again, so we're going to wake up early, Shabbos morning, and we're going to daven early, and still daven with kavana. Should still have a mention of davening. There's no mitzvah to rush davening. I don't think so. Why are you rushing? But we also don't need to, we should move. The davening should move. Make sure everyone has enough time to go home, make kiddush, etc., with plenty of time. And the zman by which we have to finish eating chametz on Shabbos morning is 10:43 a.m. That's in Queens. So you have to finish eating any chametz before 10:43 a.m. You can continue to eat after that. No problem. You want to have your chicken and your fish and whatever you want to eat after that, no problem. I put a seder on the sheet. I don't think we're going to go through it now. What happens if you sleep in? And you realize, oh no, if I daven, then it'll already be after 10:43 a.m. What should you do then? So I have a thing about which tefillas you should say and so forth. We'll leave that on the sheet, and we'll also remind ourselves of the story of the Sadhgur Rebbe, who anyway davened the regular time and didn't worry about it. But just to say, practically speaking, it would be the same thing as the Sadhgur Rebbe did, maybe for different reasons. If you're sleeping, no, what are you going to do? Daven like a mensch, daven like a regular person, make kiddush. The kiddush of B'Makom Su'uda would have to be either drinking another cup of wine, or at least relying on the cup of wine you drank for kiddush, and then have fruits and fish and chicken and whatever else you would normally eat. Kosher to Pesach. Now, there's also a special haftarah this week that some people only, including Minhag Chabad actually, some people only read this haftarah when it's this year, like this year, when Erev Pesach is on Shabbos, which means the next time we'll read this haftarah is 2045. So for all of you Lubavitchers out there listening and paying attention, if you want to learn the haftarah, this is a good year to pay attention to the haftarah. Read it before Shabbos. Read what it's about. Maybe read the commentaries on it, because you're not going to see it again until 2045. Okay. As I mentioned, on Shabbos morning, we are allowed to eat chametz until 10:43 a.m. Not only are we allowed to, we're supposed to, because we're going to have the Shabbos Suda, right, with chalas. Again, some people want to do egg matzah. I don't know. I think I'm going to do chalas, pitas, whatever it is. Now, again, coming back to this that I mentioned before, when we did the burning of the chametz on Friday morning, we did not recite the second Kol Chamira printed in my Haggadah and my Siddur. We did not say it then. Why? Because we were leaving over my challah for Friday night and Shabbos morning. But now's the time to say it. Shabbos morning, before 11:49 a.m., I put this in bold. It is very important to say this second Kol Chamira Shabbos morning. It could be easy to forget. You're busy, you're getting ready, Pesach, whatever. Remember to say it. And the reason is, and you have to say it before the end of the fourth halachic hour on Erev Pesach, because after that, which is 11:49 a.m. in Queens, because after that time it is forbidden to own chametz. Now we're down to the wire. Now it's Erev Pesach, so we must remember to say the Kol Chamira. I guess tell everybody to remind you to say it. You remind everyone else to say it, and make a way that you should remember to say it.
I suggest print it out and leave it on your table.
That's a very good idea. Print it out and just
Leave it on your dining room table.
It's there. Don't forget.
So as you're cleaning up, you're gonna see it there.
Exactly. That's a very, very good eitzah. Good way to do it.
And then Seamus.
Right. And again, as I mentioned when we were speaking about checking chametz, when on Thursday night we did say the first kol chamira, which is in Aramaic, and I said you should say the language you understand. The same exact thing applies on Shabbos as well. If you don't understand the Aramaic, either learn the Aramaic and learn what it means, wonderful, or say it in the language you understand, English, French, Spanish, whatever language you understand, go for it. If you discover chametz on Shabbos afternoon after 11:49 a.m. and you say, oh no, I already finished eating my chametz and I washed up and I put everything away, and I already recited the second kol hamir, but now I found a cookie on the middle of the floor. Where did that come from? What do you do? So the thing is that it's muktzah. It's muktzah at that point. You're not allowed to eat it. So it's muktzah. So you can't move it either if it's muktzah. So what should you do? So Shulchan Aruch says, koifa alav kli, put a utensil on top of it, cover it somehow, in order that a person shouldn't accidentally, a cookie, and eat it, and forget, because we're used to eating chametz all year round. It's something that's easy to forget. So you cover it, and you leave it there. And it should be subsequently burned on Chol Hamoed. That's what you should do. But that's not going to happen because we're going to check for chametz, we're going to burn it all, and there's going to be nothing left. Now, another important halacha is hachana, is preparing. You're not allowed to prepare anything on Shabbos for after Shabbos. Period. Secondly, you're not allowed to prepare anything from Yontif, from Shabbos to Yontif, nor are you allowed to prepare from Shabbos, from Yontif to Yontif, which means from Sunday to Sunday night. You also can't prepare. You can't take stuff out of the freezer. You can't set the table. Oh, but I'm just setting the table. I just put out some forks and some... No, you can't do any of that. No preparation allowed. I think we have discussed that you may indeed take a nap on Shabbos, even if you have in mind that it's going to be advantageous to you to take a gishmak and nap on Shabbos day, because then you'll be awake for the Seder. You may do that, but you should not state, guys, I'm going to go lie down so that I have energy for the Seder. You should not say that. But you can take a nap. So, no preparing on Shabbos for the Seder. You can't set the table. You can't take stuff out of the freezer. You can't... You could look at your Haggadah, you could read your Haggadah, you could prepare the Seder in the sense that you could go through the Haggadah and learn and read it in English and read commentaries. That you could do, that's learning Torah. That's no problem. But even then, you shouldn't say, oh, I'm doing this now to prepare for the Seder. You shouldn't say that either.
Oh, so there's one thing, a practical thing, like people that have another place to eat, like another table, like they don't only have one, maybe a good idea, if they want to prepare for the Seder, they could do it Friday, and have everything set for the Seder on Friday before Shabbos, and then eat their Shabbos meals with the bread at that different room or different table in their house. If they have that, it may be convenient to people having guests and they don't want to start setting up late. I mean, I can't do it because I only have one table, but some people have,
This is a great
blessed.
This is a great piece of advice.
Just simple, practical.
This is a great practical piece of advice, and I heard Diane Raskin said the exact same thing.
Okay.
In a shir. But like you, not everybody has that ability.
Some people do. Even
but if you do,
table,
you do, then great. Friday, set the Seder table, put out whatever you need, the matzahs, put everything out exactly like you need to, although we don't really even set... First of all, the Minhag Chabad is only to prepare the Seder plate before the Seder anyway. Right. Fine. And also some people, such as Chabad, that are very concerned about not having gebrachts. Right. So we don't put any types of plates or cutlery on the table anyway. Right. There's not much to set. But yes, it's wonderful. If you have a separate room where you're going to have the Seder, great. Put your pillows out, put your Haggadahs out, put the matzah covers, whatever you want to do it on Friday. Shalom al Yisrael. That's fantastic. And then you eat somewhere else. If you can do it, amazing. Okay, there is a custom. Some have the custom, some don't, that after Mincha on Erev Pesach, meaning Shabbos this year, they read the Haggadah from Avodim Hayinu to L'chaper al Kol V'Nisenu. Some people do it, some people don't. If that's your minhag, great. Some people also read printed in the Siddur, the Seder Korban Pesach after Mincha as well. The order of what was the Seder, what was the process of bringing the Korban Pesach. You also do that after Mincha on Erev Pesach, which is Shabbos this year. Yeah.
Didn't we learn that there was a Ramah to do the Haggadah before?
Yeah.
That I'm from Minhag, but it was Ramah says.
But I think the Gra didn't do it. I think it's the Gra.
The Rama says it's a minhag? Or?
No, I think when we learned last year. I think.
Yeah.
The Ramah says that's what.
It's different minhagim. What about Suda Shlishis? So this is where people get all excited and complicated and all make it turn the world upside down. And there's a whole things about take your morning meal and split it in half, and make kiddush, wash on hamotzi, eat a little bit, then bench, then I don't know, walk around or something. I'm not exactly sure, and maybe say the Dvar Torah or something, and then wash a second time. So that's just Suda Shlishis, your third meal. So there's all sorts of Torahs about how to do it. So I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong. Everything's right. There's all sorts of ways to do it. That being said, the ideal time, according to Shulchan Aruch, to have Suda Shlishis is in the afternoon, particularly lechatchila after you daven mincha already. So you can't really have Suda Shlishis in the morning. Certainly not before Chatzos when it's nowhere near the Zman of mincha. The time for mincha hasn't arrived yet. Forget that you didn't daven mincha. It's not even the time for mincha yet. Now, people do it. God bless them. They're doing it according to whichever posting they're following. It's great. However, there's another approach. Actually, there's a few approaches I'd like to share with you. One is you're going to have your regular meal, like we discussed already. You're going to wash, you're going to make kiddush, you're going to wash, then you're going to bench, you're going to throw everything away, flush it down the toilet, etc., etc. Then you're going to say the second kol chamira, and then you're going to move on with your life. Later in the day, when it comes time for Suda Shlishis, what are you going to do? Well, you for sure cannot wash on matzah, because it's osir to eat matzah on Erev Pesach. You for sure cannot wash on challah, because it's osir to eat chametz at this time. Now, again, I mentioned the Vad Yosef apparently said the Sephardim should fry their matzah before and use that. Okay, we're not going to do that. Egg matzah, not egg matzah, complicated. You could avoid it very simply. First of all, the Aruch HaShulchan writes a gewaldige thing. The Aruch HaShulchan writes that in a year such as this, there is no halacha of Suda Shlishis. Suda Shlishis doesn't exist in a year such as this. And he proves it. How does he prove it? It says like this. B'Shim Bar Yochai, in such a year, ate. It says he didn't eat. Instead, meaning he didn't eat Suda Shlishis. Instead, what did he do? He learned Torah. Magen Avraham brings this, by the way, as a way to be Yotzi Suda Shlishis is by learning Torah. Fine. So the Aruch HaShulchan says, 1 second. What do you mean it's telling me he didn't eat? He obviously didn't eat bread, because that's usr. And he obviously didn't eat matzah, because that's usr. So what does it mean that the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai didn't eat? It's not telling me he didn't eat challah, I know that. It's not telling me he didn't eat matzah, I know that. It's telling me he didn't even eat fruit or fish or chicken or something. He didn't eat anything. Is a proof that there's no din of Suda Shlishis on Erev Pesach, that's on Shabbos. You simply don't have to eat it. It doesn't exist. Does that make sense?
Do you have to learn Torah?
You always have to learn Torah. However, it's also clear in Shulchan Aruch, in the halachas of Suda Shlishis, that there's other ways. You don't have to necessarily have bread. You don't have to necessarily have bread. You could have fruit. You could have fruit. So this year, the ideal thing, I think, in my opinion, should be to eat fruit in the afternoon, or fish, or a piece of chicken in the afternoon, either in the afternoon or after mincha, whatever it may be. Now, you shouldn't eat too much. You shouldn't stuff yourself with fruit, and you can become full. You can have a chicken and fruit, and you're totally full. Shouldn't do that either. Why? Because you're supposed to leave room for the matzah at the Seder that night. So you should have Suda Shlishis. You can have it with chicken, fish, fruit, etc., whatever you want to eat, basic kosher Pesach foods, without washing. It's fine. And that would be fulfillment of Suda Shlishis, as long as you make sure to leave room that you shouldn't be full. And you could eat the matzah l'tei oven with a good appetite for the matzah of the Seder. Also, I heard, although I didn't find it inside yet, I heard that the Meiri writes another gewaltige thing. From the fact that in a year such as this, we see that what's the way to do Suda Shlishis is by eating fruit, is a proof that you actually don't need to wash and have hamotzi at Suda Shlishis the entire year. So it's a raya, it's a proof that the ikir opinion of Suda Shlishis is having fruits. Okay. So that's Suda Shlishis. Have some fruit and some fish. Motzei Shabbos. And this is where we'll wrap up with this. As we mentioned, you may not do any preparations on Shabbos for after Shabbos, no matter how noble they may seem. You're not allowed to prepare for the Seder, etc. Until after, this is the time in Queens, 8:14 p.m. There's different zmanim. People are going to tell you different zmanim. Many people are going to go later. Whatever. I'm saying 8:14, based on the zmanim of you can look at Chabad.org, based on Al Rebbe, 8:14 p.m. Now, even after 8:14 p.m., you still cannot do any preparation, not even to light the Yontif candles, until you make Havdalah. So if you're a woman and you're at home and you're not in shul, maybe you want to light the candles, or some maybe you're going to wait till closer to the Seder, maybe once the husband comes home. You have to say, Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh LeKodesh, before doing anything, like setting the table, lighting the Yontif candles, etc., etc. Or if you're davening, then you anyway say, in the Shemona Esrei, you say B'Tur Dienu in the davening, which is the Havdalah insert in the Shemona Esrei, special for this year when Shabbos goes straight into Yontif. And then also in Kiddush, we do one of my favorite. I don't know if it's really my favorite, but Yak Nahas. Yak Nahas is a great Rashi Tevis. Yayin, Kiddush, Ner, Havdalah, Zman. That is the order of the Kiddush on Motzei Shabbos. First you say Yayin is the bracha on the Brit Gofen. Then you say the bracha on the Kiddush, which is the bracha for the Yontif. Then you say the bracha on the Ner, which is the candle for Havdalah. You just look at the Yontif candles which were lit. Then you say the bracha for Havdalah, Hamavdil Ben Kodesh LeKodesh. Then you say the bracha for Zman, which is Shechionu. That's Yak Nahaz. We only do that Motzei Shabbos. And that's also pretty straightforward. Just follow the instructions in your Haggadah. And also always good that before you rush and start saying Kiddush, first just take a quick look in the Haggadah. Okay? Make sure you know where it is, and then say. It's always good to just pause before you do it to make sure you know what you're about to do. Like which bracha, and someone starts to say, Baruch Atah. Which bracha am I supposed to say? No. Figure it out first and then say the bracha. Okay. Any questions or comments? And again, I want to touch up my little halacha sheet a little bit here. I'm debating it's maybe too small for people that are my age, too small to read. But I like it because it's on one piece of paper. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Oh, but I want any questions or comments before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
In regards to rings.
In regards to
the Blumenkratz book, it says actually either wash it with or clean it with anomia.
Oh, a ring?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or just because
you could clean it. You could clean it. It bottom line is most likely your ring was not exposed to like hot chametz during the year, most likely. That being said, it's Pesach, so we're a little bit extra careful during Pesach. So some women, we maybe will remove their rings before they cook on Pesach. Do you have to do that? I don't know if you have to do it. Or before Pesach, perhaps even better, clean it. There's only so well, especially if it's a ring with a setting or something like that, and maybe it's harder. But the best of your ability, you can clean it. Someone asked about braces, blowtorching not necessary.
I heard who asks.
Depends who asks. I heard from the Tei Gabriel, the author. I heard from him many, many, many years ago when I was in yeshiva that the person who has braces, in addition to cleaning well, right, between the teeth and whatever it is, should drink a cup of hot tea in the morning of Erev Pesach. Not boiling hot, but hot tea. That's what he said.
Oh, how about rinsing your mouth? on Shabbos, after you finish the bread,
Yeah.
you have to rinse
Do
your
in the
mouth.
bathroom probably.
But you can't like floss. Like, what about like flossing? Like normally Erev Pesach, before, you make sure your mouth is
So it's more of an issue on Shabbos. Yeah.
right.
So I guess the best I could say really is to leave yourself time. Don't at 10:42, when the end of the time is 10:43. Oh, I better go. No. Give yourself. That's why here we're davening 7:30. We're gonna have plenty of time for everybody to do everything they need to. Eat the chametz, clean up properly, etc.
Do you have to have anything else besides the bread?
No.
Like, what's recommended? Like, to not have a normal.
And then Pesach think of foods, chicken, fish, whatever.
I'm saying the bread, and then put it away. But you can't flush it to your bench.
No, you could. You could.
Oh, you could.
Yeah, you could.
Okay.
You could. You could get rid of it and then continue your meal.
But you have to bench before the Zman?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
No, it's finishing chametz.
Okay, so once you finish the bread, you say Moses, you finish the bread, you flush it, and it's gone.
Then you can have your fish and you can have your chicken, and what does there to eat already? Right. Maybe a little bit of potato.
No, understand. Yeah.
Maybe you made a Pesach tchot. Maybe you made whatever you eat, and then have some cantaloupe. I don't know. And I didn't mention this, but obviously we want to make sure that we buy our matzah before Pesach. We want to make sure we buy enough wine that everybody can drink. The poskim say, I think wine should have at least 4%. So Rashi wine or whatever is fine, but make sure you have enough wine for everybody. Grape juice if people need that. Okay, we'll leave other details for now. We'll wrap up. We'll just share a little Maisa that I read in a Fabrengen with the Rebbe in 1978. The Rebbe told the following story. It was the Erev Pesach. And Erev Pesach is the fast of the firstborn. People come to shul, especially the firstborn come to shul. Now, again, this year it's not Erev Pesach, it's Thursday, but and after davening the siyum, someone gets up with a Masechta Gemara, starts reading, he's going to make a siyum. A guy shows up in shul carrying an infant, a 2-week-old baby, 3-week-old baby, carrying an infant. And everybody looks at him, what are you bringing the kid for? It's a baby. And he says, what do you mean? This baby is my firstborn son. I want him to also be able to eat. So they say to him, I want him to be able to eat on a regular day also. He's my baby, so I brought him to hear the siyum so the baby could also eat. So they look at him and they say, they're following along here. So the baby understands the siyum? And he says, you do? Anyway.
That's good.
Does everyone else understand the siyum? Good, the baby. Really, and it's true. On a certain level, we're all like the infant. When we learn Torah, we understand. The Hashem's Torah, we understand. Of course, we do understand. Everybody understands on whatever level they're able to understand on. But in a certain sense, we're all like the infant. We're all an infant. You understand? So who does understand? But of course, everybody to the best of our abilities. The main thing is we should all be blessed with a kosher and Freilich and Pesach. And hopefully this year, Chodesh HaGeula, base Nissan, in addition to being the yard of the Rebbe Rashab that I mentioned, was also the first time the Parah Duma was burned. So hopefully we'll be able to burn a Parah Duma this year, God willing, and all be together in Yerushalayim, our Kodesh, and Mitzvah Hashem, with the Korban Pesach, celebrating together Yom Tov in the Beis HaMikdash. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.